All right, so let's start off here with talking about what TypeScript actually is. That's probably a good thing to know before we jump into learning TypeScript. So at its core, TypeScript's main purpose is to add static typing to the JavaScript language. So in this sense, it's what's referred to as a superset of JavaScript. In other words, all JavaScript programs are also TypeScript programs, but TypeScript provides some extra syntax that doesn't qualify as JavaScript. Now, just in case you're not familiar with what static typing actually is, basically, it just means that you're able to define the specific types of variables as well as add types to functions and define things like classes. So really, the main idea here is that this helps you catch errors early on in the development process, and really it can save you a lot of time and headaches down the road. All right, now the next question that you might have is, if I already use JavaScript, why would I need to use TypeScript, right? What would be the benefits of switching to TypeScript? Well, one of the biggest benefits of TypeScript is that it really contributes to more maintainable code. TypeScript programs tend to be more maintainable and less prone to errors and bugs than JavaScript programs. Not always, but this tends to be the case. And really, the reason for this goes back to TypeScript's typing system, right? It's static typing system, which makes it easier for developers to understand code, and it generally ensures that your code is just more predictable and easier for new developers to learn as well. Now, another key benefit of TypeScript is that it's incredibly popular, and this of course goes back, at least in part, to the fact that it's a superset of JavaScript, which is one of the most popular programming languages in the world. So TypeScript, though, has a really thriving ecosystem. It's really being used very widely in developing different libraries for both JavaScript and TypeScript. And really, this popularity makes it easier to learn, since any problems you might run into, any questions you might have, are usually pretty easy to find online. And this isn't always the case with some less popular languages and libraries. All right, so another key benefit of TypeScript is that it's relatively easy to learn and use. And again, this goes back to the fact that it's based on JavaScript, but many people actually find that the static typing that TypeScript adds onto JavaScript makes programs a little bit easier to understand, because in JavaScript, which doesn't have static typing, it doesn't provide as much context when you just have a variable name and a value as it does when you actually specifically define the types for different variables. All right, now in addition to being fairly easy to learn, another benefit of TypeScript is that it can be used for a very wide range of applications. And in fact, pretty much anything that JavaScript can be used for, TypeScript can be used for as well. And the reason for this, as we'll see a little bit later on, is because in order to run TypeScript in most cases, we'll actually be converting it into JavaScript. Don't worry if that sounds a little bit confusing. I'll show you how to do that very shortly. So getting to some of the possible downsides of TypeScript, the first downside is that TypeScript can be a bit more verbose than JavaScript, right? And this has to do just with the fact that we now have to add static types, where before we were able to just define a variable without having to define its type. And the same thing goes for things like functions and classes as well. Now, this is really something that you'll get used to. I know that a lot of people who are coming to TypeScript from JavaScript tend to try and cut corners when they do TypeScript because they're so used to being able to do things with fewer keystrokes. But I think that you'll find that the extra syntax, the extra verbosity, so to speak, that TypeScript adds is well worth it because of the maintainability that it brings to our code bases. So another possible downside of TypeScript is that it's not necessarily compatible with all JavaScript libraries and frameworks. Now, obviously, almost all of the popular libraries like React, Angular, Vue, and so on have very good support for TypeScript, but some of the smaller libraries, such as libraries that you find just by doing a search on NPM, might not have TypeScript support. So anyway, those are some of the benefits and possible downsides of TypeScript. With all this in mind, let's jump in and see how we can actually start using TypeScript.